Welcome, happy Bulldog fans. Yes, it is good to be happy again. Steve, after two frustrating, infuriating, I could come up with a lot of other adjectives, we'll let it go at that, weekends. The Bulldogs, in their first SEC West game, beat the number 7, 8, depending on whatever poll you look at, team in the country, and didn't just beat them, they beat them down and they baffled them. First, with a dominating defense. Second, with some new twists on offense that maybe we weren't promised what Joe Moorhead would do this weekend, but he came up with some twists this week, and it paid off.
You know, David, we expected an ugly ball game, and we got one. But it's an ugly ball game that a Bulldog could love, because late in that ball game, especially in the second half, other than save 1 or 2 minutes there, it just felt like State was going to find a way to win this ball game. It didn't feel like State would find a way to blow it. Late in the ball game, when State needed an answer, Nick Fitzgerald got him one. Of course, he takes care of the Tim Tebow record. We got some video of him talking about that. We'll post tomorrow. But, you know, David, we did see some short passing stuff just to keep the linebackers honest. But we also saw more of a concerted effort in the running game. Bulldog fans have kind of been clamoring for that. They get it tonight. And I know there'll be a lot of people now that see, I tried to tell Joe, they just need to run the football.
But when you add it up, here's the numbers. Yes, Kylan Hill, 23 rushes, 126 yards, a big night for the true sophomore. But still, Nick Fitzgerald, 28 rushes, most of them called, not sacked all night long, 195 yards and both Bulldog touchdowns. The run game is still built around Nick Fitzgerald.
It is, David, and you know what? And that's the horse that we'll ride, okay? And that's as simple as that. Nick has been criticized, and this whole offense has. So it's good to see them have some success. Now, we don't want to get too far over our skis, but this is a really good Auburn defense. Now, their offense didn't do a lot to help them tonight, but the fact that State lined up and ran the football with authority against one of the league's top rushing defenses bodes well for the future.
It really does. And, of course, Fitzgerald's passing 9 of 17. He limited the number of throws to 17. He carried, and I know we were watching the message boards all night, more fury about why he runs. Well, on 4th and goal, what else were you going to do? Well, especially the empty backfield, but that's what State normally does. The big touchdown at the end to seal it, that was nice and icing. But when a big run had to be made, generally Nick Fitzgerald made it. And, of course, Kylan Hill made some plays. Eris Williams had his use in there as well. Steve, I want to talk about the twist on the offensive side. I think, in a sense, the Bulldogs almost Malzahn by using motions we have not seen yet this year. Although Joe Moore had said that's been in the playbook all season, they broke it up tonight in a big way.
It became the bread and butter of the offense. You know, State comes out, lines up in a 5-wide set with a running back in the slot there. They motion him back to the backfield, and they motioned him late a lot of times. And so all of a sudden, Auburn was kind of caught off guard a little bit. It took a couple of series to get going, but more importantly, David, the Bulldog defense, Bob Shoop talked about it. You got to get some 3-and-outs. They got some 3-and-outs. Matter of fact, they opened the ball game with a couple 3-and-outs and gave State the shorter end of the field. You started to know that in a battle of attrition, you're going to have to win the battle of field position. State did, but back to the running game, David. When we had to get a play, we got one on the ground. Kylan Hill, some explosive, very efforted runs, hurdling a tackler, diving through a tackler, diving for a first down on a 2nd and 2 that you kind of got a feeling the number 8 had brought his A game tonight. But Nick Fitzgerald, really one of his better games on the ground. And you mentioned over 50% passing, but a lot of that was just kind of measured dinks and dunks. And there were a couple drops tonight, too, and that's an issue, too, that has kind of plagued the Bulldogs the whole season. So they got a week to clean it up before we get on the road to go to LSU, but feeling a whole lot better about that trip than we did this morning.
Of course, the key situation of the game, 4th and goal. Well, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and goal when State tries 3 times to punch it in, succeeds more or less on review. There was not enough to overturn it given the angles they had. You know, maybe a kind of a Rod Gibson type moment there where you get the touchdown. But I think this was a lot closer and the justified call was made. But I think that was pivotal, and it's interesting that Moore had told us he actually checked with Bob Shoop. Not that this defense is going to be forced into a situation into the quarter there, but, you know, he cross-checked with a guy who's been around the block a few times, and he said, no doubt about it, go for it. And I think the Bulldogs would have been kind of deflated going into halftime, even knowing they were going to get the ball, if their coach had not trusted them to make a play before halftime and really set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and David, that's when you really got some breathing room. And that offensive line played really well, especially on the interior. And listen, we did some things to help the tackles tonight, you know, with some of the play calling. We also had an attached tight end at times. But I really thought Deion Calhoun, Elton Jenkins, and Michael Story, who served in Darrell Williams' place tonight, had one of his better nights as a Bulldog. But the interior runs were there. There were times that when Nick Fitzgerald had to kind of navigate his way through there, and there were some running lanes to be found. And I think there was a real challenge to Marcus Johnson's group because they have not played well 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, they had some deficiencies they had to kind of address, but it's good to see them come out and make a statement against a defense they weren't supposed to be able to run on.
Well, and as Deion Calhoun said, they are a proud unit. They weren't used to getting beat up like they were the last 2 weeks. I thought it was interesting, too, you mentioned Michael Story. Fitzgerald, now he was supposed to run behind Calhoun and Jenkins for that fourth line dive, he said. But he read the play, said Auburn made a great defensive play, and they have players do that. And he defaulted to the left guard, Michael Story's position. And I believe that Greg Island was in on that series, although he and Tyree Phillips been alternating at the tackle position. So it says a lot that your second line lineman created it. It would have been a whole lot easier with Darrell Williams in there. But, hey, it's only going to be good for the confidence of those guys. They opened up for the game's decisive score.
And, folks, Darrell Williams is going to be fine. He'll be back. Matter of fact, he tried to give it a go tonight in pregame warm-ups and then walked over to Jonathan Abram when it was time to go. And John asked him, "You play?" And he just kind of put his head down and said no. But he's got a bye week to get better. He'll be back. And there's a possibility Jamal Peters can be back when we get ready to go to LSU, too. Joe Moorhead said he makes the move from out indefinitely to day-to-day like the rest of us. Brian Cole's situation, that's still a little bit up in the air. He's listed as day-to-day, but they said they found the severity of his injury that is, quote, upper body later in the week, which makes you think perhaps it's a little more serious than just a bump and bruise. So we'll see what happens over the course of the next week, and we'll get an update a week from Monday. There will be no Joe Moorhead press conference on Monday. We will have an opportunity to speak with Joe on Tuesday, but we'll get a full update on the injuries a week later.
Now, nobody claimed Auburn had a great offense coming in. Not even Auburn claimed that, obviously. But Jarrett Stidham, who has been around the block a few times, and I still think he was signed by Tommy Tuberville. He's been around for a while there with his transfer year. 19 of 38. If you had known Auburn would have to throw the ball 38 times, you'd have felt pretty good about this game. I do think they reached back in the Tuberville playbook for those screen passes, which were really the only plays that hurt State except for that big 3rd and 2. Auburn only converted 3 third downs. This was the first one, but it was also a turning point play because Maurice Smitherman and Mark McLaurin stayed with the play, chased him down at the 1 yard line, and the ball came loose.
And that's, David, that's one of those effort plays that coaches are always talking about. And, they could have very easily just said, okay, he's gone. They didn't. They run him down. They force the action. The guy tries to stretch it out. The ball rolls. Kobe Jones and
presence of mind.
Even asked I asked Mark McLaurin and Maurice Smitherman, were you telling him, were you communicating? They were not. That's a defensive lineman, folks. A D lineman running 50 yards down the field and recovering a fumble in the end zone. If you want to know what this program is about, it's that play right there. It's 3 guys not giving up on a play and becomes a game-changing play. Because if they go in right there, David, it's probably a different ballgame. I'm not saying that State wouldn't have held on, but there'd have been a lot more trepidation in Davis Wade Stadium tonight.
Great play by the safeties all night, and State had to get that. The defensive line did their usual job, but it had to be the safeties and linebackers doing their job in support. 19 combined tackles for Mark McLaurin and Jonathan Abrams, and boy, Abrams was so close to coming away with a pick that would have changed it. But all right, let's get to the other potential turning point. When Auburn blocked a field goal that would have probably iced the game, got a big return, State adds onto it with a personal foul. I guarantee 90% of Bulldog country was thinking, oh no, it's going to happen again. The defense stood tall, gave up a first down, but still got the ball back on downs. And at that point, all State had to do was run out the clock and score a few points. Well, they got it from Nick Fitzgerald with his touchdown run.
They did, David. A great night by the defense. They've been great all year, but they keep Auburn out of the end zone. And listen, anytime you keep Gus Malzahn out of the end zone, that's big. And now, Auburn did State a favor on one play in particular, David. We're remembering this. They ran one gadget play, and Slayton gets loose behind there. Just so happened State got just enough pressure to rush a throw. Right. And so Stidham overthrows him. He is wide open, David. He is wide open like in Farmer John's field out there. There was nobody around him. And you just kind of felt like, oh, my gosh, they got us. It was just a matter of could he run it down. They ran a couple other gadget plays. They just weren't able to fully execute them because State had them covered up. So a great job by Coach Bob Shoop and his unit to kind of limit kind of the mad scientist that is Gus Malzahn. But the bottom line is when State needed something good to happen tonight, it did. Whether it be that ball going long, the fumble rolling loose, or late in the ball game when a hole is plugged, Colin Hill gets outside and runs for a first down to extend the drive, and Nick Fitzgerald ultimately scores on. So it just, as last week felt like it wasn't our night, tonight felt like it was.
And State got plays out of the special teams. 3 field goals. Yes, they had the block. But let it be forevermore recorded that a team that had not recovered a fumble or forced a fumble all season. Who comes up with the first fumble recovery? A deep snapper. And I was teasing Joel Baldwin about the sidelines. He said, yeah, I'd have given pretty long odds that wouldn't have happened either. But that's what you have to have happen when a team's had a couple of tough losses. They rebound from it, and guys who even you don't expect come up and make plays. Now, it's a happier Bulldog bunch going into the open date, a happier fan base out there, bound to be some happy prospects as well who got to watch this in person. I know you and Paul will be talking to them this week about updating on that. We get, I believe we get Moorhead on Tuesday, though it may be Wednesday, but we also talk to players and staff on Tuesday as well. So a slow week for open date. But, Steve, there is no telling how much difference this makes to the Bulldog mentality. Do they want to be 1-2 SEC? No. They certainly expected to be 2-1 and thought they could be 3-0. But, you know, you take what you've got, and now you ride into the second half with a fresh set of ideas about how to do offense and a defense you know you can count on.
Well, 4-2 sounds unbelievably better than 3-3 because we'd been 3-3 with 3 consecutive losses with some very talented teams to go on this roster. But you entered a bye week now with a lot of momentum. So now you can take some time to rest some guys. And Errol Thompson told us, the coach told him that some of these younger guys are going to get a lot of reps during the midweek and as we kind of prepare for this bye week. And then we'll get back into our regular game plan for LSU a week later. So the bye week comes at a great time. You almost wish State would continue to play, but Errol Thompson said that he's ready for some time off after 3 very difficult SEC games. And so it's great tonight. They're still partying down in the Junction. We've got some work to do, but I tell you, David, it's a lot easier to get the work done when you know that your readership and your membership is going to receive it much better than they have the last couple of weeks.
Well, certainly hope so. So, back to the press box. I'll be writing the game story. Before that, we'll certainly have, I believe Mike Nemeth should already have his flash gamer up. Robbie Falk has put up some material as well. He's working on a notebook. Paul's doing a piece on how the offense came alive tonight and did some things differently in that regard. I know you've got a lot of videos to post, so no lack of material to carry you dogs through tonight and tomorrow as well. And like I said, we'll be talking to players and coaches Tuesday and Wednesday. And a lot of other things happening. Basketball practice underway. And don't forget the Bulldog World Series this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as well. You can check Gene for the game times on that as well. But a lot happening, but let's enjoy this victory for this evening as they are all about us right now. So, from here at Scott Field, Bulldogs 23, Auburn 9. For Steve Robertson and our crew at Gene Space 24/7, this is David Murray.